Welcome to AMP, the platform for multisport age group athletes to showcase their journeys. Hi, welcome to episode 11. My name's Richard Conway, multisport age grouper and host and creator of AMP. Hope you're all well. Since episode 10 I've been able to get back out running. Took some advice from a doctor friend who said just start back with a short distance, which is exactly what I did, starting off at 2k, and my calf held up well. I'm now up to, hopefully today, 10k, so that'll be nice to get back out there and feel confident that I can do some more distance, and then we can look at upping the speed and start mixing it up a bit. So yeah, that's a really positive bit of news from my point of view. On the downside, should have been racing this weekend just gone in Almere at the World Multisport Championships. Cancelled like most other events. Quite a few of you put posts up on Instagram and Facebook saying how sad they were that it wasn't taking place, but we've just got to look forward to next year and train as hard as we can, and hopefully it'll go ahead then. But on a positive note, been great to see the World Championships back this weekend with the individual men's and women's and the relay. We spent most of Sunday afternoon most of the weekend watching sport. There was the British Athletics Championships on as well, so we had a complete weekend of just chilling out and enjoying watching sport on the TV again. Congratulations to George Taylor-Brown for winning the Women's World Championships, and also to Alex Yee, who came 5th in the men's, so big congrats there. And then on the Sunday, smashed it again, getting a bronze in the relay, which was good fun to watch. The tour's also started. It's been going a week, and that's slowly ramping up. Been a tough first week. Loved watching it. Anybody who's into cycling, to just wait for these 3 weeks every year. And we thought that with Geraint Thomas not being in and Chris Froome not being in, there wouldn't be much interest for us. But yeah, it's been really good. Really enjoyed it. Been some top performances, and it's so close we don't know who's going to win it yet. So looking forward to continue to watch that. So yeah, on with episode 11. I received a really nice email from Joe Parker, Multisport age grouper, and it really did make us chuckle. I had to read it out loud to my wife and my youngest son, who was living with us at the time. And yeah, some of the stories that she's got will hopefully entertain you as well, as much as it did me. She's a musician. She's a dancer, doing all types of dancing disciplines, and she is an alpaca farmer. Jo was coaxed by one of her friends to start running, and after moving jobs in 2000 at the age of 40, she was coaxed to having a go at a triathlon. And her first triathlon, after taking swimming lessons and doing a bit on a bike, she raced on a Dutch shopping bike. After removing the stand and the basket, she completed the race and she was hooked. So since Shopping Gate, Jo has represented GB age group 8 times, and it culminated in a 3rd in Kazan at the ETU Championship. So please enjoy Jo's journey from dancer, alpaca farmer, to age group multisport medalist. Hi Jo, welcome to AMP.
Fine, thank you. Apart from being shattered, I've just had a killer session via Zoom for strength and conditioning.
All right. Right, so you're still full on. Oh, my dog's just walked in. Don't worry.
Well, if you hear a crash and I run to open the door, that's because our cat has decided she wishes to enter.
I'll just show you Betty. That's Betty.
Oh, wow. Oh, she's very cute.
Yeah, she's lovely. And she likes to be in small spaces, so here she is.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
An interesting and, can I say, hilarious email you sent through. It had us in stitches.
Oh, well, good.
In a good way.
Yes.
Especially the llama incident, but we'll get into that.
Alpaca. It's an alpaca.
Sorry, an alpaca. Yeah, I do apologise. So, just tell us a little bit about how you got into, well, a bit about your background and what sports you did growing up, and yeah, up to how you got into triathlon and multisport, really.
What sports did I do as I grew up? None. I avoided sport if I possibly could. I hated it all. The one thing I didn't mind too much were 100-metre sprint, because you can cope with anything for 15 seconds, as it took me then. Athletics night clashed with orchestra, and I was one of only 2 cellists in the school orchestra, so I was told in no uncertain terms by the music mistress, who ruled the whole school, that I would attend orchestra, not athletics. So that was the end of my sprint.
Fair enough.
Career. And the only other activity I did was dancing.
Right.
So.
And what type of dancing was it?
Anything. I will do anything. Put me on Strictly, I would be happy.
Brilliant.
I have done ballet since I was 6, and
right.
I still do it.
Cool.
And I've done tap dancing, ballroom dancing, jazz dance, street dance, all sorts.
Excellent.
Street dance I find a bit hard now. I don't bounce like I used to.
Well, it would certainly keep you all fit anyway.
Yeah, it does, but the trouble is it's a bit like sprinting. I did do dance competitions for a while, mainly disco, but also ballroom and rock and roll. But, the longest you dance for is 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's similar to, a sprint. It's full on, but that's it.
Yeah.
And you maybe do, if you're lucky and you get through the heats and into the finals, maybe you might do that 3 or 4 times in a competition.
Right.
So it's a bit different from triathlon.
Very different. Yeah. So whereabouts are you in the country?
Leighton Buzzard.
Leighton Buzzard. Where's that? I've heard of it, but I'm not sure where it is.
Everyone always says that. It's halfway between London and Birmingham.
Right, okay.
Just off the M1.
Right, okay.
And just south of Milton Keynes.
So, what made you get into multisport from dancing then?
It was actually a friend of work. I moved to a new job, and this friend of mine, Jill, suggested we went for a run after work just to wind down. We're on the same team. In fact, we were both on the board of directors. So we went for a run after work, and I made her promise not to leave me behind because I really was pretty slow. And we'd sort of jog along the towpath of the River Thames. It was very nice, and she kept nagging me about how I ought to have a go at triathlon because she knew I quite liked cycling. But I've never done any competitive cycling. My bike had a big wicker basket and a stand you could put down so you didn't have to lean it against a wall. And I said, well, I can't swim. Well, I could, but, very slow breaststroke with my head up. So she said, well, take lessons. And she gradually sort of eliminated all the excuses I could come up with.
It sounds like it. She had an answer for all your buts.
Absolutely. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. So I did my very first triathlon, which was a sprint, fleet triathlon, and I wasn't last quite.
Fantastic.
You know, and I was convinced everyone would have gone home by the time I finished, and they hadn't, and they were all cheering me and clapping me, and I thought, well, this is fantastic. And although the run was tough, it was through a bluebell wood and quite pretty.
Yeah.
Things mattered to me.
Yeah, it all helps. Whatever gets you through.
Absolutely. And so when she said, well, try another one, and this time don't stop and dry yourself after the swim, and maybe, sort of see if you can get a better bike and that sort of thing.
Were you using your bike with the stand taken off and the wicker basket?
Yes. I took the stand off and the basket off. And I improved quite a lot, and I was that. By the second time, I was hooked. I just thought, wow, this is really good.
Yeah, brilliant. It's a great start. It just shows you how inclusive it can be, doesn't it? When you just rock up there with lessons and running and biking, and you've got your normal bog standard ladies bike, and it's it takes all sorts, and you get through it, and that's the beauty of the sport, isn't it? It's
absolutely. People didn't laugh at me, and they didn't, and they were really encouraging. I would say a lot goes down to the marshals at the races, and they make such a difference. They really do.
Yeah, they're so encouraging, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you did a few triathlons, and then how did you come to hear about Agegroup?
It was actually after I did a race in Bedford, which is just 30 minutes away from where I live.
Right.
And I did the Bedford Olympic distance, which I'd never done. I think it was only about the second or third. And my husband pointed out that if I put my name down, I would have qualified for the European Championships.
So how did he know about this?
I think it said somewhere on the entry details, or it was announced, or there was something like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it, and I think it was announced, that this was a qualifying, he was listening to what the commentator was saying. I was too busy racing.
Of course. In the zone.
Absolutely. So he said, if you put your name down, you would have qualified for European Championships. And I thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
This was the girl who was never invited to play in the hockey or netball team because she was so rubbish at sport.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, okay. And I looked it up. About the same time, I had acquired a coach, which took me about 3 years to pluck up courage to sort of phone up a coach and say, would you take me on?
So was it 3 years from you starting to realising that you could have qualified? Was it just 3 years?
Oh, no, it was longer than that.
Right.
I think my first triathlon was around the start of the millennium, 2000.
Right, okay.
I actually qualified in 2012 and raced in 2013.
Right.
Actually for the first time.
Sure.
But I did, I was starting to get quite serious. I joined a club and sort of, and people were encouraging. Mm-hmm. Then I got a coach, and when I said, well, what do you think about me having a go at qualifying for an international age group race? She said, yeah, that's great, have a go. Rather than what? Which was sort of what I always expected. So I, she helped me sort of find out what I needed to do and look at the websites and everything and work out what races to enter. And again, it was quite a local race that I was able that I entered that I qualified, one at Brendan, and I was in. I was qualified.
Well, it doesn't just happen like that, though, does it? Because you've got to do all the hard work, you've got to train, and then you've got to do the race, which, if you're anything like me, you're a bag of nerves at, because you know what's on the line. So it's not as like I was in. you do yourself a disservice there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the big step was actually getting a coach and having someone tell me what I could do, because I'd spent so many years finding things really hard, and I never really pushed myself, whereas she made me realise I could actually do much more than I had been doing.
Yeah.
And that in itself made me stronger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense, yeah.
So, she'd give me a turbo training routine, and I learnt about turbo trainers. I had never come across turbo trainers before. By this time I had got a bike that didn't come with a basket attached. A specialised alley, which I was very proud of. And, I'd do this turbo training session, and I would think, oh my God, I can't get through this. But actually I would. I'd be absolutely knackered at the end of it. But, gradually I'd find myself able to ratchet up the gears and get a bit quicker. Even my running started getting quicker. I've always struggled with running.
Yeah.
In swimming, it took me about, I think it was 3 years or 4 years before I could do a whole swim crawl. Because I was nearly 50, and learning to swim crawl at the age of 50 is quite a big thing.
Yeah.
So, and part of it was just courage to sort of keep going, and I wouldn't get tired, and I could actually do it. But so all these things were quite big challenges for me.
I think going back to the swimming, I think that's the toughest of the three. Certainly, unless you've been swimming from a child and you've got the technical side of it nailed, it's so technical to be really, really good. Well,
it is, but I mean, for me, it wasn't so much the technical side, and this is what people find difficult to understand, because no one has ever come across someone whose only sport was dancing.
No.
Dancing is just so different. So, in swimming, if I was told, move your arm like this, I'd move my arm like this. And it wasn't a problem thinking about what my arms and my legs and my body and my head are all doing, because that's what you do when you're dancing.
Sure, yeah.
So actually, the technical side of swimming, I love.
Yeah.
It's just dancing in water.
Of course, yeah.
And actually what I struggled with was the strength side, because I found it difficult to carry a bag of shopping. If you dance, you have no upper body strength at all. You don't need it. Apart from maybe a bit for, rock and roll and holding your arms out for ballet. So, and now I just love swimming. I really do. And it's almost become my best, the best of 3 legs.
Wow.
So, interestingly enough, my dad was a very good swimmer. So, don't know whether it was hidden somewhere in the genes.
Possibly. But like you say, the dancing and the swimming association of movement, that's probably stood you in good stead all those years. So you got yourself a coach, and so what's the process now then, after you've qualified, obviously, several times for GB? What's the process that you go through at the beginning of a season to get yourself ready for your A race or races?
Well, I have a different coach now who he actually founded the triathlon club I belong to, and he's the manager of a number of the international teams, John Cowan. And so I'll tend to work with him, via Zoom, Skype, whatever, and talk things through. And in the past, I've sort of been a bit of a qualifier tourist, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Travelled the country to try and qualify. I found that was quite tiring, and also if you go a long way away, you have to stay overnight. And if my husband comes, there are issues of house sitting, feeding animals, all sorts of things like that. So now I tend to, and maybe just because I'm older, I'm a bit more relaxed about it. And I've done quite a few, so I think, okay, I'll do the ones I can get to reasonably easily, and I'll have a go. And if I don't qualify, I don't qualify. But actually, last year, for the first time ever, I was placed in the European Championship. So this year, if it had taken place, I was going to automatically qualify.
Brilliant.
I came third. So
excellent.
I didn't have to do any qualifying races.
That's nice when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so, as it turned out, the race was cancelled. So
is that gone over to next year then?
Yeah.
So where do you know where you're racing yet?
No.
Don't know where you're racing yet. And
I'll go wherever it is.
Yeah, of course. Is that the sprint?
That's the European sprint.
Yeah.
I didn't go for the world. I didn't try and qualify for the World Championships because it's in Edmonton. And I admit I'm a triathlon tourist. I go to places that I think, that would be nice.
Same.
So, and Edmonton, I've been to Canada loads of times. Edmonton itself, I thought,
yeah.
So I didn't go for that one.
It's fair enough. Yeah. So how many times have you represented GB in total from 2013?
8 times.
Brilliant.
So I've done 2 World Championships and 6 European Championships.
And where's been your favourite?
Well, I think partly Alanya, which was my first ever, just because it was the first. And
yeah.
You're there and you think, wow,
Yeah.
I'm representing my country.
Yeah.
And the city was incredibly welcoming, and it was a really good atmosphere. So that was amazing. I think last year as well, because that was in Kazan, and it was just somewhere I would never have gone to if this hadn't been on. It was an amazing city, and the fact that I came third, so that was pretty good too.
Brilliant.
And also it was really good because earlier I actually broke my ankle in March, and so it was touch and go whether I could actually manage to run 5 kilometres.
Yeah.
And just that I managed to do it and I got there, and that in itself was a real achievement.
How did you break your ankle?
That time, it's the only time I've been injured through sport. I was just running and I just turned my ankle out running.
Yeah.
I didn't realise I'd broken it, but physio reckoned after about 3 weeks of mobilising the ankle, and the physio said, actually, I think it's broken. I think you should get an X-ray.
Yeah.
So then I found out it was broken.
So what was the time frame between breaking it and having to race?
I broke it at the end of March.
Okay.
And it was mended, hopefully. I didn't actually go back for another X-ray. It actually took 11 weeks, which was much longer than I expected.
Yeah.
I didn't have an X-ray for 3 weeks, and then when I went back after 5 weeks, it hadn't mended. particularly well, so I was told to leave at least another 3. So it was sort of June before I was training, and I had the race at the end of July.
So you didn't have long to prepare then?
No. My run was rather slow.
Yeah, but fantastic anyway. Fantastic achievement to get there after that.
Yeah.
Really good.
I've had this ongoing problem with various injuries, none of which were through triathlon, but I broke my ankle when I fell down a pothole in the dark in Madagascar, and then I ruptured my ACL water skiing 4 years after that, and I was just getting back to fitness and thinking, wow. And we have a herd of alpacas, and
it was your herd of alpacas. It's yours.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And we had this vet student, and I was supposed to be showing her how to put a halter on an alpaca, and then I was going to cut his toenails.
Right.
And so I went to put the halter on him, and something happened, and he just happened to rear up. Just I put the halter on him, and I fell backwards against the post and rail fence.
Yeah.
And pulled the sort of halter, didn't let go of it quick enough. Because he was only on 2 legs, he fell over on top of me onto the fence, and I broke a couple of ribs. Oh. So that was very painful. Yeah. But I think the funniest thing was I actually got it announced at Nottingham in the sprint race there. They said, "Here's Jo Parker just back having broken her ribs when an alpaca fell on her." Yeah,
I mean, now you've explained it, it sounds really painful. But when you put that in the email, it was like we were, how on earth? But of course, it's because you have all these ideas that we never thought you'd own the actual alpaca. We thought,
I've never heard of alpacas. Right. That's why going away for the weekend is a little more complicated.
And is that you have a herd to get is it wool they have, or is it just because you like them, or the fleece?
Well, because we like them, because they mow the grass, although now we're renting another 17 acres of grass.
So big old place.
But they're lovely animals, they really are.
Gentle.
Except when they fall on top.
So so going back to you've got yourself a coach, and does he put it over training peaks for you, and do you follow that plan?
Yeah, I mean, he has commented that he hasn't come across anyone who has quite such a complicated life as me, because I'm still working, and I'm an independent engineering consultant, so I mean I have to go overseas. Well, I haven't this year since February, so I have to sort of train in all sorts of weird and wonderful places. And then I might be getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to travel somewhere to be on site all day. And so I will put this on Training Peaks as my diary fills up. I put them into Training Peaks so that when he comes to do the week, you can see what things I have to cope with. And then he has to try and work out how to fit the necessary training around my program. So, I mean, lockdown was, I think, the first time I ever developed a sort of regular routine, and I was having a rest day on the same day every week, and doing things like that, and, doing turbo training on the same day every week. And
so how does he plan it out for you? How many swims a week do you do now, just over this period in lockdown, and runs and bikes and strength sessions and anything else that you put in there?
Well, I'm doing 3 swims, 2 or 3 runs, and usually 2 bikes and a turbo. And then I have 4 strength and conditioning sessions, which I know is quite high, but I found it's made a huge difference. And I still have my ballet lesson.
Right. So, fun-filled week.
Which actually is like, it's sort of like, I don't know, yoga or
Pilates. I was just going to say, Yeah, like a yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite tough. I mean, it's really good for the core. You're working your core the whole time.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's a full session, full week then, fulfilled week.
It is. Yeah. I probably do about. And I also the other thing I started doing about a year ago because. Basically, I've got some joints which are wearing out a bit and getting a bit arthritic-y. So I do 10 minutes mobilisation first thing in the morning and before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And then I do a sort of mini strength session of the weak bits of me, sort of my glutes, my adductors, and my feet. So I just do a little 15-minute session that won't. It's not trying to build it like the strength and conditioning, but it's just maintenance to make sure that
keeping it flexible.
Yeah.
What's your favourite part of the process? I know you said you've gone towards the swimming. Is that the case out of it all? Do you like?
I love open water swimming. That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And actually, a couple of people in my club have sort of introduced me to swimming in various local rivers.
Yeah.
And that's amazing because you sort of swim past and there's things to look at, which is so different from going up and down in a pool.
Yeah.
So I like that. My JC has actually introduced 100-metre sprints again, and he's gradually stretching out to 120-metre sprints. And that, for my, to try and get my running improving. So that, and I quite enjoy them.
Yeah.
I'll do them in, we've got some lovely countryside around where I live. And, I'll do it on various paths through the trees, and that's really nice.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. And cycling. I love cycling. So
you like them all then, basically, is what you say. Yeah, you like the whole process.
No, I don't like most of the running. I like the 100-metre.
Right.
But no, I don't like running.
So is your favourite distance the sprint distance?
Yeah, because you've only got 5k run.
Yeah.
There's a theme here.
Yeah.
But I am looking to have a go at long aqua bike, which will mean much longer swim and bike.
Yeah, I had Yanis Christodoulou on the last episode, and he was the.
And now me. Sublime to the ridiculous.
Yeah, he was the aquathon champion. He's pretty hot at that sport. So, yeah. But he's gone the other way. He's trying triathlon now. So.
Right.
Yeah. So that was good. What advice have you got for anybody who would like to either get into multisport or is already in multisport and would like to have a go at qualifying for age group?
If they're not in multisport, I'd say just find a race and enter and have a go, because that's essentially what I did. There'll be people who, there's always plenty of information from the race organisers. There are races now. And even with the changes they've had to introduce, people are still friendly and helpful, and
Yeah.
As I once had back on a report I did at work, JFDI, where the JDI stands for Just Do It.
Yeah.
If someone's already doing it, if they're not a member of a club, I would say join. I think clubs can be brilliant places to meet training partners, pick up tips, find out about kit, without any of the hype, and things like that.
Yeah.
If you can afford it, I'd say get a coach. That will help you. If not, then there are lots of training programs out there that you can download from websites and that sort of thing. I get, the magazine 220, and they have all sorts of training programs. Yeah. But I think it's worthwhile, then setting yourself some targets and trying to do a training plan for yourself and try and stick to that. Yeah. And to a certain extent, I'd say organise it around what you enjoy. Okay, I'm not breaking on running, but, I have to do some. And actually introducing these sort of 100-metre intervals is a way of getting me running. I'm enjoying it, and without it being too painful. So find things that you enjoy doing. You don't have to clother yourself make yourself do certain training options. There's so many alternatives. If that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense, yeah.
If you're an age group or an amateur of any sort, you're doing it because you enjoy it. So,
and I think
why flunk the stuff you don't enjoy?
Yeah, that's important to keep that in your mind as well, isn't it? We do this because we enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So what are you, you mentioned there about the 220 magazine. What other resources are your go-to resources for?
Well, I'd be lost without my Garmin watch.
Yeah.
And Training Peaks I find really useful. So again, if someone wants a platform, I know some people swear by Strava or Zwift. I'm afraid I'm not into either of those, so can't comment. Probably never.
I can highly recommend Zwift.
I know. But I'm quite happy turbo training at, with the routine I want to, I need to do, rather than necessarily pitching yourself against other people. So, I think the other thing is, it's worth spending time finding a bike you really love. And, my race bike, I love to bits. I've had it now for nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's quite long in the tooth, but I won't change it because I get on that bike and I just think, wow, I just fit. It just feels comfortable. I'm immediately in race mode and pedaling away. I'm convinced some of it, I bought it second hand, and the previous owner was a lovely lady who you may have come across, Egham.
No, I'm sorry.
She's Irish triathlon champion and duathlon champion, and she used to live in Milton Keynes and belong to my club, and she was sponsored by the bike manufacturer, and so she got a new bike every year.
Right.
So I bought her old bike, and I just love it to bits.
Yeah, good. Well, that was going to be my next question. What's your favourite piece of kit? But I think you've answered that one.
Yeah. I would also say, I know this sounds rather funny, but it's not actually my favourite piece of kit, but it's a really useful piece of kit for me, and that is one of these short exercise bands.
Right.
Because with all the travelling I do, it's just a little tiny thing. You can pop it in your suitcase, and then you can do all sorts of exercises with the band to make them that much tougher. So it's a way of keeping fit when all you've got is a hotel room, because sometimes it's not even safe to go out at night in some of the places I am.
Yeah, no, it's a good shout, because at least then you've always got something to use, haven't you?
Yeah.
So finally, what are your plans going forward? I know it's a bit difficult to sort of answer that, but what would you like to do in the future?
Well, unfortunately, I mentioned bits of me are wearing out. Particularly my hips and my lower spine, so I may have to stop running. Oh, what a shame. I really missed that. So I'm looking to qualify for aquabike. So I did my first time swim last Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my first ever 50-mile time trial.
Right.
As a qualifier in a few weeks' time. So fingers crossed. So that might be something I move on to or do as well, which might be a way into sort of longer distance and middle distance. But the other thing I'm only 4 years off hitting 70. So I have two options to celebrate my 70th birthday. One is to do an Ironman 70.3.
Yeah.
If my hips are up to it, so I have to build up my running, like it or not.
Yeah.
So that I might do that. Or the other thing is I have an idea of doing 70 consecutive 70-mile bike rides starting on my birthday. Or maybe starting the day after my birthday.
Wow, that's yeah. Well, they're both great.
One of those two.
Yeah, they're both great ideas.
So that's the long-term plan.
Yeah, cool. Right, well, I think that's a great place to finish it. Thank you ever so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Okay. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, really enjoyed that chat with Joe. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Joe. Much appreciated. Loved listening to your journey to age group multisport from a dancing background, and that the fact that you're still using your dancing in your training, I think that's genius. Loved the bit about the shopping bike on your first try, and just goes to show nobody cares. Everybody's just focused on what they're doing at a triathlon, and it just goes to show that people should just give it a go. Doesn't matter what you've got, what bike you've got, what equipment you've got, just get out there and enjoy it. If after listening to this, it inspires anyone to take up multisport, or any current multisporters who fancy a go at representing their country, then this podcast's all worthwhile. So that's it for another episode. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in touch and ask us a question or any suggestions, just drop us an email at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram, amp_1967, Facebook at ampgb, Twitter at agegroupmultisportpodcast. Just remember, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.